Hello, family. Enjoy this relaxing moment with Surly Tales. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. It means the world to us. Also, share this video with your friends and loved ones, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. The sun set slowly over the bustling city of Lagos, casting hues of orange and purple across the horizon. The streets buzzed with excitement as family, friends, and well-wishers gathered to celebrate one of the grandest weddings the city had seen in years. Amara and Ade's union was not just the coming together of two people, but the merging of two prominent families with deep roots in Igbo and Yoruba cultures. The reception venue, a sprawling hall adorned with cascading flowers and intricate African motifs, was alive with color and sound. Guests dressed in vibrant aso-ebi, coordinated traditional attires, moved rhythmically to the beat of the talking drums, blending seamlessly with the modern DJ's playlist. The air was thick with the aroma of jollof rice, suya, nkwobi, and pounded yam with egusi soup. Conversations in a mix of Pidgin English, Yoruba, and Igbo flowed as freely as the palm wine being served. Amara sat regally at the head table beside Ade, her skin glowing in the soft lighting of the hall. Her traditional Igbo attire, a flowing red blouse and a wrapper adorned with intricate uli patterns, was complemented by heavy coral beads that spoke of her heritage. Despite the noise and the crowd, her gaze kept drifting to Ade, her new husband, a man she had come to love deeply over the past year. Ade was the epitome of charm and confidence. Dressed in a white agbada with golden embroidery, he exuded the kind of aura that made people gravitate toward him. He was a successful entrepreneur in the tech industry, known for his quick wit and sharp business acumen. Tonight, however, his smile seemed rehearsed, his laughter a bit too loud. Amara noticed but dismissed it as exhaustion from the day's overwhelming events. As the evening wore on, the speeches began. Elders from both families took turns blessing the couple and sharing anecdotes. Amara's father, Chief Okoye, spoke passionately about the importance of unity and trust in marriage, while Ade's mother, Alhaja Funk, reminded them of the sacredness of their vows. Every word seemed to resonate deeply with Amara, but Ade's focus wavered. His hand remained glued to his pocket, where his phone vibrated intermittently. A whispered promise. Later that night, after the festivities had wound down, the couple retired to their honeymoon suite in a luxurious hotel overlooking the Lagos Lagoon. The room was nothing short of breathtaking, with its floor-to-ceiling windows, plush king-sized bed, and rose petals scattered artfully on the floor. Amara felt her heart swell as she stood by the window, gazing at the shimmering city lights. "Ade," she whispered, turning to him. "I can't believe we're finally here." He walked over, wrapping his arms around her waist. "We made it," he replied, planting a kiss on her forehead. "This is just the beginning." But even as he spoke, his phone buzzed again. This time, it was insistent. Amara pulled away slightly, her brow furrowed. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," Ade said too quickly, slipping his phone back into his pocket. "It's just work stuff. You know how these things go." Amara frowned. It was their wedding night. Surely work could wait. But she chose not to press further, unwilling to ruin the mood. Instead, she smiled and reached for his hand. "Let's toast to us," she suggested, pouring champagne into two flutes. They clinked glasses, and for a brief moment, Ade seemed present, his smile genuine. The restlessness begins. As Amara freshened up in the bathroom, Ade paced the room, his mind racing. The texts from Lola, his longtime mistress, had become relentless. "Ade, you promised me. I'm waiting. Don't do this to me tonight." He knew he shouldn't have agreed to meet her, not tonight of all nights, but Lola had a way of manipulating him. She was fiery, bold, and unrelenting, a stark contrast to Amara's gentle demeanor. Their relationship had been a complicated web of passion and deceit, and though he knew it needed to end, he couldn't quite bring himself to cut ties completely. When Amara emerged, wearing a silky nightgown that hugged her curves, Ade felt a pang of guilt. She looked radiant, her eyes filled with love and trust. "Are you okay?" she asked, sensing his unease. "I'm fine," he lied, pulling her into a brief hug. I just need to grab something from the car. I'll be right back. Amara looked puzzled. At this hour? Can't it wait? It's important, he insisted, already grabbing his key card. I'll be quick. The departure. As Ade stepped out into the cool night air, he exhaled deeply. His driver was waiting by the curb, the engine idling. He slid into the back seat, glancing at his watch. Lekki Phase 1, he instructed curtly. The driver hesitated for a moment as if wanting to say something, but thought better of it. Ade leaned back against the seat, trying to push aside the growing sense of dread. This wasn't how the night was supposed to go. Back in the suite, Amara sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the door. Something about Ade's behavior didn't sit right with her. She picked up her phone and called her best friend, Kemi. Kemi, I think something's wrong, she said, her voice trembling. What do you mean? Kemi asked, concern evident in her tone. Ade just left to get something from the car, but I don't know. He's been acting strange all night. Kemi paused. Amara, don't overthink it. Maybe he's just overwhelmed. It's been a big day. Maybe, Amara said, though her gut told her otherwise. The mistress waits. Meanwhile, Lola sat in the dimly lit bar of a secluded beach resort, her long legs crossed elegantly. She sipped on a martini, her red lipstick leaving a faint stain on the glass. Her phone buzzed and she smirked as she read Ade's text, on my way. To Lola, this night was proof of her power over him. Despite his vows to another woman, he still came running when she called. But what neither Ade nor Lola anticipated was that Amara was not one to ignore her instincts. Determined to get to the bottom of her husband's strange behavior, she slipped on a coat, grabbed her purse, and headed for the hotel lobby. The streets of Lagos were quieter than usual, the city's usual vibrancy replaced by the calm of the night. However, in the depths of Amara's heart, there was no calm, only a storm of confusion and suspicion. Ade's sudden departure gnawed at her, and her instincts urged her to act. Amara takes a step. Standing in the hotel lobby, Amara felt her pulse quicken as she saw Ade's car disappearing into the distance. She hesitated for a moment, considering the implications of her next move. Madam, do you need anything? The hotel concierge asked politely. Amara shook her head, forcing a smile. No, thank you. But as the concierge turned away, she quickly hailed a cab parked outside the hotel. Climbing into the back seat, she instructed the driver, follow that black SUV. Keep a safe distance. The driver glanced at her through the rearview mirror, raising a brow. Madam, you day all right? I'm fine, she replied firmly, her tone leaving no room for further questions. As the cab tailed Ade's vehicle, Amara's mind raced. What could be so urgent that her husband needed to leave on their wedding night? Had she misjudged him entirely? These thoughts lingered as the car weaved through the city's dimly lit streets. The meeting place. Ade's car came to a halt outside a small, secluded beachside bar in Lekki Phase 1. The place was a far cry from the elegance of the hotel they had just left. It was the sort of spot frequented by those who wanted to stay hidden, dim lighting, an entrance obscured by palm trees, and just enough parking spaces to avoid attracting attention. From the shadows of her cab, Amara watched as Ade stepped out, his phone pressed to his ear. She couldn't hear his words, but his tense body language was unmistakable. Moments later, a striking woman emerged from the bar. Her fitted black dress clung to her like a second skin, and her stiletto heels clicked sharply against the pavement. Even from a distance, Amara could see the woman's confident demeanor as she approached Ade. The cab driver, sensing the drama unfolding, glanced back at Amara. Madam, not your husband be that? Amara's silence was answer enough. Confrontation or patience? Inside the bar, Ade and Lola sat at a corner table. Lola's lips curled into a sly smile as she leaned forward, her manicured fingers brushing against Ade's hand. You came, she said softly, her voice laced with satisfaction. I shouldn't have, Ade replied, his eyes darting around nervously. It's my wedding night, Lola. This is wrong. And yet, here you are, Lola retorted, sipping her martini. You can say whatever you want, but actions speak louder, don't they? Ade sighed, running a hand over his face. He hated the control Lola had over him, but he couldn't deny the magnetic pull she exerted. Their history was complicated, filled with passion, arguments, and broken promises. Lola was a woman who refused to be ignored, and she knew how to play her cards well. "Lola, we can't keep doing this," Ade began, his voice low but firm. "It's over. I've made my choice." Lola laughed, a sound both bitter and amused. "Over? You said that before, Ade. But somehow, you always come back." Amara's decision. From her vantage point just outside the bar, Amara wrestled with her emotions. Her heart told her to barge in and demand answers, but her mind cautioned her to wait. She didn't want to create a public spectacle, at least, not yet. She reached for her phone and began taking pictures. The grainy images weren't perfect, but they were enough to confirm what her gut had been telling her. Her hands trembled as she saved the photos to her gallery. "Madam, you no go enter?" the cab driver asked, his voice tinged with curiosity. Amara shook her head. "Not yet." Instead, she decided to gather more evidence. Quietly slipping out of the cab, she moved closer to the bar's entrance, careful to remain in the shadows. The mistress's ultimatum. Inside the bar, Lola's demeanor shifted. Her playful smile faded, replaced by a steely determination. "Let me make this simple for you, Ade," she said, leaning forward. "If you think you can marry her and forget about me, you're wrong. I won't be your little secret." Ade stared at her, his jaw tightening. "What are you saying, Lola?" "I'm saying that if you don't figure out what you want, and soon, I'll make sure everyone knows about us. Your wife, your family, everyone." Ade's chest tightened. He knew Lola wasn't bluffing. She had a vindictive streak and wouldn't hesitate to cause chaos if it meant getting what she wanted. "Lola, please don't do this," he pleaded, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'll sort things out. Just give me some time." "You've had time," Lola snapped. "You think I don't know you've been stringing me along? I won't wait forever, Ade." The silent witness. From her position near the bar's entrance, Amara could hear fragments of their conversation. The words stung, each one like a dagger piercing her heart. She had suspected Ade was hiding something, but hearing the truth was a different kind of pain. Tears welled in her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. This was not the time for weakness. If she was going to confront Ade, she needed to do it on her terms. A dangerous game. As Ade and Lola's conversation grew more heated, the bar's other patrons began to take notice. Whispers and glances were exchanged, and a few people discreetly took out their phones, recording the unfolding drama. Amara realized that things were spiraling out of control. She couldn't let this become a public scandal, not yet. Summoning all her strength, she turned and walked back to the cab. "Take me back to the hotel," she told the driver. "You no one confront him?" he asked, surprised. "Not tonight," she replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "But he'll know I was here." Foreshadowing the storm. As the cab drove away, Amara began crafting a plan. She wouldn't confront Ade immediately, she wanted him to dig his own grave. But when the time came, she would make sure the truth came to light in a way that would leave him no room for escape. Back at the hotel, she waited patiently, sitting on the edge of the bed. Hours passed before Ade returned, his face pale and his steps hesitant. He forced a smile, acting as though nothing had happened. "Sorry I took so long," he said, slipping off his shoes. Amara didn't respond. Instead, she simply looked at him, her gaze piercing. "We'll talk tomorrow," she said quietly before turning away. Ade froze, sensing the weight of her words. But he said nothing, unaware that the woman he had underestimated was already planning her next move. The next morning, the sun rose over Lagos with its usual golden brilliance, but for Amara, the light did little to chase away the storm brewing within her. As she sat at the edge of the hotel bed, watching Ade sleep, her mind replayed the events of the previous night like a broken record. The image of her husband with another woman, the intimate whispers, the body language, the ultimatum, was etched into her memory. But today wasn't the day for tears. It was a day for action. The morning after, Ade stirred, yawning as he stretched lazily. He glanced over at Amara, who was already dressed in a simple but elegant blouse and skirt, her face unreadable. "Good morning, my love," he said, his voice warm but cautious. "Good morning," Amara replied evenly, sipping her tea. Her tone was calm, almost detached. Ade frowned slightly but said nothing, brushing off her cool demeanor as exhaustion from the previous day. "I was thinking we could go for brunch," he suggested, standing up and heading to the bathroom. "There's this great place not far from here." Amara hummed in response, non-committal. As Ade disappeared into the bathroom, she took out her phone and scrolled through the photos she had taken the night before. Each one was a painful reminder, but they were also her weapon, a truth that could not be denied. The first confrontation. Later that morning, the couple sat in a trendy outdoor cafe. The air was filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and sizzling plantains. Ade seemed relaxed, chatting about plans for the week, but Amara barely responded. Her silence hung heavy in the air, and eventually, Ade couldn't ignore it. "Is everything okay, Amara?" he asked, leaning forward. She met his gaze, her eyes sharp. "I should be asking you that." Ade blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" Amara placed her phone on the table and slid it toward him. The screen displayed one of the photos she had taken of him and Lola at the bar. Ade's face drained of color as he stared at the image. "Amara, I can explain," he began, but she cut him off. "Explain what, Ade? That you left our bed on our wedding night to meet another woman?" Her voice was low, but her words were laced with venom. "It's not what it looks like," he said weakly, avoiding her gaze. "Then tell me what it is," she demanded, her voice rising. Heads began to turn, other patrons glancing curiously at their table. Ade leaned in, his voice a frantic whisper. "Amara, please keep your voice down. Let's talk about this somewhere private." Amara laughed bitterly. "Private? You mean like the private meeting you had with her?" "No, we're going to talk about this now." The mistress speaks. Before Ade could respond, Amara's phone buzzed with an incoming message. She glanced at the screen and froze. It was from an unknown number, but the content was unmistakable. "If you think your husband is faithful, think again. Ask him about me, lol." Amara's grip on the phone tightened. Without a word, she stood and walked away, leaving Ade scrambling to follow her. They returned to the hotel in tense silence, each lost in their own thoughts. A night of truth. Back in their suite, Amara confronted Ade again. This time, she demanded answers. "Who is she, Ade? And don't lie to me. I already know her name." Ade sighed, running a hand through his hair. "She's someone I knew before you." "It's complicated." "Complicated?" Amara repeated, her voice trembling with anger. "You were with her on our wedding night, Ade. There's nothing complicated about that. It's betrayal, plain and simple." "I didn't mean for this to happen," Ade said weakly. "Lola and I were over, but she keeps coming back, threatening me. I didn't want to cause a scene." Amara's laughter was cold. "And yet, here we are. You've caused a scene, one that I will not forget." The viral storm. The next morning, Amara woke to a barrage of messages on her phone. Her best friend, Kemi, had sent a string of frantic texts. "Kemi, Amara, are you okay? You need to see this. Kemi, it's all over social media. Kemi, call me ASAP." Confused, Amara opened Instagram and was met with a flurry of posts. Videos of Ade and Lola's argument at the bar had gone viral. The captions varied, but the essence was the same: man cheats on wedding night. Wife unaware. Amara's stomach churned as she watched the clips. The voices were muffled, but the images were clear: Ade with Lola, their body language unmistakable. The comments section was filled with outrage, mockery, and pity. Family fallout. Within hours, both families were in an uproar. Amara's parents were furious, demanding an explanation. Chief Okoye's booming voice carried through the phone as he berated Ade for disgracing their daughter. "This is how you repay our trust?" he thundered. "You humiliate her, and by extension, all of us?" On the other side, Ade's mother, Alhaja Funk, was livid as well, but her anger was directed at the public spectacle. "Ade, how could you be so careless? Do you know what this will do to our family's reputation?" The couple sat in silence as the calls continued, each word driving a deeper wedge between them. Amara's choice. By the end of the day, Amara was emotionally drained. She locked herself in the bathroom, staring at her reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at her was a far cry from the joyous bride she had been just days ago. Her phone buzzed again, another message from Lola. "You deserve better. He'll never change." Amara threw the phone onto the counter, her anger boiling over. But as the initial rage subsided, she realized something. Lola was right. Ade had shown her who he truly was, and now it was up to her to decide what to do with that knowledge. As she stepped out of the bathroom, Ade looked up from the bed, his face full of regret. "Amara," he began, but she held up a hand. "I need time," she said simply. "Time to think. Time to decide if this marriage is worth saving." Ade nodded, his shoulders slumping. For the first time, he realized he might have pushed her too far. The chapter ends with Amara packing a small bag and leaving the hotel. She doesn't know where she's going yet, but one thing is clear: she won't let anyone dictate her next move. The weight of Ade's betrayal did not remain confined to the newlywed couple's suite. By the time Amara left the hotel, the storm had already reached their families, their friends, and, inevitably, the wider public. In a world where privacy was a fragile thing, the scandal became a blazing fire, consuming everything in its path. The elders convene. Amara arrived at her parents' home in Ikoyi, a serene neighborhood known for its sprawling mansions and quiet streets. Her mother, Ngozi, greeted her at the door with open arms. Behind her, Chief Okoye sat in his favorite armchair, his face dark with anger. "Amara," her father began, his voice trembling with suppressed rage, "tell me everything." Amara recounted the events of the past 2 days, her voice steady despite the pain. By the time she finished, Chief Okoye's fists were clenched, and Ngozi was pacing the room. "This is an insult," Chief Okoye declared. "Not just to you, but to our entire family. That boy and his family must answer for this." "Papa, I don't want to fight," Amara said quietly. "I just need time to figure out what to do." But Chief Okoye was not a man to be silenced. He immediately picked up his phone and began making calls, summoning the elders of both families to a meeting. Ade faces the music. At the same time, Ade's family was in turmoil. Alhaja Funk, a woman known for her sharp tongue and no-nonsense demeanor, had called a family meeting at their estate in Lekki. Ade sat in the center of the living room, surrounded by uncles, aunts, and cousins, all of whom were visibly displeased. "How could you bring this shame upon us?" Alhaja Funk demanded. "Do you know how many people have called me today? Friends, business partners, even strangers." "Mommy, I made a mistake," Ade said, his voice low. "I never wanted things to get this far." "A mistake?" one of his uncles scoffed. "You left your wife on your wedding night for another woman. That is not a mistake, that is foolishness." Ade buried his face in his hands. The weight of his actions was finally sinking in, but it was too late to undo the damage. The meeting of families. 2 days later, the families gathered in a private hall. The elders sat in a semicircle, their expressions grim. Amara and Ade were present, but neither spoke. This was a time for the elders to address the situation. Chief Okoye was the first to speak. "This is not how a marriage should begin. Ade has disgraced my daughter and our family. He must make amends." "What do you suggest, Chief?" Alhaja Funk asked, her voice icy. "A public apology? Compensation? My son knows he has made a mistake, but this is not a matter to be decided by outsiders. This is not just a family matter anymore," Chief Okoye countered. "It's a public scandal. My daughter has been humiliated in front of the entire community. Ade's actions have consequences." The elders deliberated for hours, debating everything from reconciliation to annulment. Amara sat in silence, her emotions a whirlwind of anger, sadness, and confusion. She listened but did not speak, her mind already made up. The public weighs in. While the families debated, the public continued to dissect the scandal. Social media was ablaze with opinions, memes, and debates. Some people sympathized with Amara, praising her for her dignity and strength. Others mocked Ade, labeling him as the epitome of disloyalty. Influencers and bloggers seized the opportunity to weigh in, turning the situation into a trending topic. News outlets even ran segments discussing the cultural implications of infidelity in marriage. Amara avoided the noise as much as possible, but it was impossible to escape entirely. Everywhere she went, she felt the weight of curious eyes and whispered conversations. Amara's inner struggle. As the days passed, Amara grappled with her emotions. Part of her wanted to forgive Ade and move on, clinging to the love they had once shared. But another part of her knew that trust, once broken, was difficult to rebuild. She sought advice from her best friend, Kemi, who had been a pillar of support throughout the ordeal. "Do you still love him?" Kemi asked one evening as they sat in Amara's room. "I don't know," Amara admitted. "I thought I did. But now, I'm not sure if I can love someone who hurt me like this." "Whatever you decide, make sure it's your choice," Kemi said firmly. "Not your parents', not the elders', not society's. Yours." Ade's desperation. Meanwhile, Ade was spiraling. He sent Amara countless messages, begging for a chance to explain, to make things right. He even went to her parents' house, but Chief Okoye refused to let him in. Desperate, Ade turned to his pastor for guidance. "Pastor, I've made a mess of my marriage," he confessed during a private meeting. "I don't know how to fix it." The pastor, a wise and measured man, listened carefully. "Ade, repentance begins with accountability. You must own your actions and make amends, not just with words, but with consistent effort. Trust is earned, not demanded." Ade nodded, tears streaming down his face. For the first time, he realized that his path to redemption would be long and arduous. The community gathers. A week after the scandal broke, the families held a public meeting at the community center. Elders, friends, and well-wishers attended, eager to see how the situation would be resolved. Chief Okoye addressed the crowd first, detailing the events and expressing his disappointment. Then Alhaja Funk spoke, acknowledging her son's wrongdoing but urging the community to support the couple in rebuilding their marriage. Finally, Amara stepped forward. Her voice was steady, but her words carried the weight of her pain. "I stand here not as a victim, but as a woman who has been tested," she began. "I believed in this marriage, in the vows we took. But those vows were broken, and now I must decide what is best for me." The room fell silent as she paused, her gaze sweeping across the crowd. "I ask for your understanding as I take the time to heal. This decision is not just about me or Ade. It is about my future, my happiness, and my peace." A new path. As the meeting concluded, the community began to disperse, their murmurs filling the air. Some supported Amara's decision to step back, while others criticized her for not forgiving Ade immediately. But Amara paid them no mind. For the first time in days, she felt a sense of clarity. Back at her parents' home, she sat under the shade of the old Baobab tree in the backyard, a place where she had often sought solace as a child. The tree, with its thick roots and sturdy trunk, seemed to whisper wisdom to her. Life would go on and she would find her way, no matter what. The Baobab tree stood tall and resolute in the Okoye family's backyard, its roots deeply embedded in the soil, weathering storms, and bearing witness to generations of life. Under its shade, Amara found solace as she prepared to take the most decisive steps of her life. The drama of the past weeks had shaken her, but it had also awakened a strength she didn't know she possessed. Amara's revelation. Days turned into weeks, and the furor surrounding the scandal began to subside, at least publicly. Privately, however, Amara was still the subject of countless conversations. Friends, relatives, and even strangers had opinions about what she should do. Some urged forgiveness, citing the sanctity of marriage. Others told her to leave, warning that trust once broken was rarely repaired. Sitting under the Baobab tree one afternoon, Amara reflected on her life. She thought about the young girl who had dreamed of a fairy tale marriage, the woman who had fallen in love with Ade, and the betrayal that had shattered her illusions. She realized something profound. Her worth was not tied to her marriage or to anyone else's opinion. The final confrontation. The day came when Amara decided to meet Ade, not as his wife, but as a woman seeking closure. They arranged to meet at a quiet cafe, away from prying eyes. Ade arrived first, looking nervous and remorseful. He stood as Amara entered, but she waved him down and took a seat across from him. "Thank you for meeting me," Ade began, his voice shaky. "Amara, She held up her hand, silencing him. "Ade, I didn't come here to hear excuses or apologies. I've heard enough of both." He swallowed hard, his hands clasped tightly on the table. "Then why are we here?" "To tell you that I'm done," Amara said calmly. "I'm done with the lies, the betrayal, and the humiliation. This marriage, if we can even call it that, is over." Ade's eyes widened. "Amara, please. I've been trying to make things right. I've cut off all contact with Lola. I've started therapy. I'll do whatever it takes to win back your trust." "I believe you," she said, surprising him. "But this isn't just about trust. It's about respect. Respect for me, respect for our vows, and respect for yourself. You didn't respect any of those things, Ade? And now, I have to respect myself enough to walk away." Ade's shoulders slumped, and tears welled in his eyes. "I love you, Amar. I still do. And I loved you," she replied softly. "But love isn't enough when the foundation is cracked. I hope you find the healing you need, Ade, but I won't be part of this anymore." She stood, her decision final. As she walked away, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time in weeks, she felt free. Community divided. The news of Amara's decision spread quickly. Some praised her for her strength, calling her a role model for women everywhere. Others criticized her, accusing her of abandoning her marriage too easily. The elders, who had hoped for a reconciliation, were disappointed but respected her choice. Chief Okoye, though initially reluctant to support his daughter's decision, eventually came to admire her resolve. "You are stronger than I ever imagined," he told her one evening. "You have shown the world what it means to value yourself." Alhaja Funk, however, was less gracious. She blamed Amara for not giving Ade another chance and accused her of bringing shame to their family. But Amara refused to let the opinions of others sway her. She knew she had done what was right for her. Rebuilding herself. Amara threw herself into her work and her passions. She started a blog, writing about her journey and the lessons she had learned. Her words resonated with women across the country, many of whom reached out to share their own stories of resilience. She also returned to school, pursuing a master's degree in counseling. She wanted to help others navigate the challenges of life and love, using her experiences as a foundation for her work. One evening, as she sat under the Baobab tree, her laptop open on her lap, she received an email from an international women's organization. They had read her blog and wanted her to speak at their upcoming conference in Nairobi. Amara smiled, feeling a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in a long time. Ade's redemption? Meanwhile, Ade began his journey of self-reflection. He committed to therapy and sought guidance from his pastor. He cut ties with Lola and worked to rebuild his relationship with his family. Though he hoped for reconciliation with Amara, he eventually accepted that it might never happen. "I let my pride and selfishness destroy something beautiful," he confessed to his therapist one day. "But I want to be better, even if it's too late to fix things with Amara." A new beginning. Months later, Amara attended a friend's wedding. It was the first time she had been to such an event since her own. As she watched the couple exchange vows, she felt no bitterness, only hope. She realized that love, when built on trust and respect, was still something worth believing in. As the night wore on, she found herself talking to a man named Tund, a soft-spoken architect with a passion for community development. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, and for the first time in a long while, Amara felt the stirrings of something new. The lesson of the Baobab Tree. The story ends with Amara once again under the Baobab Tree, now a symbol of her journey. She reflects on its strength and resilience, its ability to weather storms and remain standing. Like the tree, she had been tested, but she had endured. As the wind rustled its leaves, she smiled. Life was unpredictable, but she knew one thing for certain: she would face whatever came next with courage, grace, and an unshakable belief in her own worth. Epilogue. The Legacy of Strength. Amara's story became an inspiration to many. She published a book, Beneath the Baobab Tree, A Journey of Love, Betrayal, and Self-Worth, which became a bestseller. Her voice, once silenced by pain, now resonated across the continent, reminding women everywhere that they were enough. And in the shade of the Baobab tree, a new chapter began, one filled with promise, purpose, and peace. The end. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.